Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, live and direct from BZ Sierra Nevada Airy in occupied California, doing the job the American media maggots won't, featuring right thinking from a left brain, working without a net and under an assassination order. Here is the bloviating Zeppelin.
I have come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
Well, we're here. I think it's gonna work. I really do. I'm pretty much convinced. Got a really great shoe for you tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here in the sumptuous and palatial SHR Media Network studios, where I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. And this studio is 2 miles east of the locus of evil on the entire left coast. That's right, the Bill Mill, the Capitol Building at 10th and L Streets in downtown Sacramento, which is doing its best, as I say these days, to proffer the appearance of lovely, beautiful downtown Mogadishu and all its features. And late at night when I get through, I'll exit that door about 10:30 or so, and I will hear the screams of common sense dying in the night, as they do every night. And I will smell the noxious, evil vapors of sulfur and brimstone from that damnable building. I gotta say this, you gotta belly up to the bar. We've kept your seat, and it's great to see you back. Flackbait is your bartender tonight, and he pours with the best of them. You can see over here the lamp. The lava lamp is, in fact, lighted to my left, to your right. You're always right. I'm right. You're right. Indicating that you can listen and chat. I invite everybody. Go to the chat room, shrmedia.com. Chat room, shrmedia.com. You can watch on Big Sarge Media's Facebook page, or the SHR Media Facebook page, and or the SHR Media YouTube channel. We don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all right here at the Saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All that we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the handle, and please don't forget to tip your waitress. Hey, Alaskan. Great to see you in chat. And I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? No, I know what you're thinking in the chat room. Because it happened Tuesday, our ISP Comcast took a major dump on the SHR Media Network on Tuesday. I want to tell you folks, it's 20 degrees cooler out there tonight than it was on Tuesday. It was 106 on Tuesday. It's 86 the last time I checked right now. A 20-degree difference. I can only hope that things stay well. I haven't gotten any of the messages of death right down here that I did on Tuesday night. So for me, that's an indicator that things, I believe, are going to do well tonight. I can't wait, because we've got someone who's returning to the show. And let's see if I can stop and do this again. There we go. I had him on in...
voice message system 95.
Oh, don't want to give that number out. Let's try it once more. Because, as BZ knows, you always want to make sure.
Forwarded to an automatic voice message system.
Okay.
9515513.
Okay. All right. Let's try this. Uno más. Because sometimes phones are disconnected. Okay. Let's try it one more time. We were going to have Jim Horn on.
Your call has been
No. Okay. Well, always be prepared. Semper Gumby is what I say. Luckily, over here, I have a massive amount of paperwork, and I have lots of cuts. And apparently tonight, that's what I'm going to have to do. Although, in the interim, I am going to keep trying. Just to make sure.
Your call has been
No. Okay. Anyway, well, we're going to have to press on because that's what we do here in the saloon. We're going to have to press on. But I will say this. I have a ton of material, and from that ton of material, I'm going to make this continuing offer. Let's see. Got John. Hey, welcome, John. Anybody wants to call in if you're listening right now? I'm going to go through a ton of material. And as we go through these, if any of these topics speak to you, then please call in. And I put it on all the promo material. I'll tell you right now, if you happen to be listening from anywhere, East Coast, West Coast, the number to call in is 209-284-3210. Let me pull this over here so that I can see when you guys call in. The number again is 209-284-3210. And I'm going to try uno más, just on the off chance.
Your call has been
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to have to move on, unfortunately. Jim he's a retired diplomat kind of guy. I had him back on in February. So 4 months ago, he was very popular, really great guy, a lot of good stuff to talk about. And because of that, there was a ton of information that he had because of the nature of his work about Islam. And due to that, there are a massive amount of stories these days that have to do with things that I think that I would really like to have him weigh in on. For example, Alaskan says, have Clyde do a song and dance. Well, sorry, Clyde. Didn't Clint Eastwood say that? Sorry, Clyde. I think he did. Let's see. I think I have somebody on the line here. Go ahead, mystery caller.
Yeah, this is Jim.
Jim, how do you do, sir? It's great.
Yeah.
It's great to see you. I'm not seeing. I'm sorry. It's great to hear you.
Yes. I didn't know if I was supposed to call in or if you were going to call me.
I did. I called your cell, but that's okay. It doesn't make any difference. I got you right now. So fabulous,
okay.
folks. We're
Great.
talking to Jim Horn. And if you missed him back in February, I want to give you a little bit of his CV. Jim is a retired diplomat, and he's a counterterrorism expert. And he experienced a decade of life and work in Islamic societies, and he knows all about Islam really well. He's a counter-jihad activist, and he's an author. Oh, stop. Since we're looking on video, this is a copy of his book that I'm showing up to the video right now that I bought, and it says censored by the CIA. But the book is entitled Experiencing Islam, Becoming Islam Aware, and Exposing Corruption, parenthesis, Sharia. And I came across Jim when he started retweeting some of my stuff on Twitter, and I thought this would be a great guy to have here. Now, Jim lives in Southern California, so his time frame and mine coalesce right now. So he's not up real late like he would be on the East Coast. So this is great. I don't feel so bad about Jim calling in because it's only about 8:10 right now. And most of the people that I speak to on the East Coast are, they're like 11 o'clock right now. So thanks for being here tonight. I greatly appreciate it. But when Jim was here the first time, he's only the second person that I've had live in the studio. And it was because he was up in Northern California from Southern California on business. And he actually came into the studio, sat down, and we had a great 2-hour live show with Jim speaking to me about 3 feet away at another microphone. Really enjoyed the heck out of that show. So I thought, let's get him back on. There's so much more stuff that's occurred these days. By the way, I should tell you that Jim has worked closely with the CIA, the alphabet agencies, DIA, the FBI, the United States Secret Service, CBP, Customs and Border Protection, DHS, Department of Homeland Security, and a whole bunch of other agencies. And then after he retired, he continued his service to our nation, and he was serving with a terror early warning group and the FBI's Joint Terror Task Force, the JTTF, state and local law enforcement intelligence group, and also as a counterterrorism national security advisor. So this time, like last time, I wanted to make sure that I introduce his CV and that you folks understand that when he's making various statements and he's talking to us tonight, he's not a pundit and he's not here to opine. He's here because he has a great facile grasp and a wealth of knowledge about Islam. Okay, and we're going to talk about Islam, but also about foreign affairs, counterterrorism, and especially in the news today, there were a ton of things that are going on, and it's those areas that I want to mine with James Horn tonight. So again, thank you, sir, for being here. I greatly appreciate it.
It's a pleasure being here anytime.
Now, if you want to find him on social media, he's on Facebook at just very simple, Jim Horn, and you can see him there. If you want to follow him on Twitter, he is on, NY. Okay, Jim, you're gonna have to solve the Twitter thing for me. It's NY.
No, let me go. I have to go to my Twitter account.
Okay, I think it's NY and Jim.
No, that would be my email.
Okay.
Okay, here it is. Yeah, it's NY and Jim 1. NYANDJIM 1.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Now, can you do me a favor? Do you have me on speaker back there somewhere?
Yes.
Can you turn that down because I can hear it on the radio? And that's what makes it a real radio show. If you ask somebody, caller, can you please turn down the radio?
Let me do this here.
Okay.
Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you. Now, I also want to emphasize that Jim Horn is an author. I held up a book, and I highly recommend this because I've actually read this. And if you look tonight, you can see that I have a bunch of tags in this. These are some things that I'd like to discuss with Jim tonight. But I want to continue to say Experiencing Islam, that's one of his books. Another book that he wrote that gets even greater marks is one called Islam in the Workplace, Muslims in the Workplace. And just when you thought that perhaps, why should I be concerned about that? Why should I read a book about Islam in the workplace? Well, we're going to talk to Jim about that tonight as well. What I'd like to do, James Horn, for the show is I'd like to start with some of your background, some of the tenets of Islam, some of the things that you've experienced in Islam, and then I would like to go and move into some international affairs, particularly considering the stories that have come out today about Iran. And I'd like to pick your brain about international affairs, Iran, the Strait of Hormuz, etc., because some tankers exploded today. And, hey, no problem with that. That could just cause a kerfuffle here and there. And then I want to come back to the United States and address the issue of Islam in the United States itself and some of the people that are representing Islam in the United States these days. And after that, then I've got a ton of stuff to talk about in terms of politics. So very briefly, James Horn, how is it that you became an expert and clearly I have heard it said that you are in the top 100 field of experts about Islam on the planet. So how did you get to be that aware of Islam yourself, sir?
Well, I've encountered Islam in many, many different places, starting very early in my life and my diplomatic career when I was stationed in Istanbul, Turkey. And I've been a person that's always been interested in faith. Excuse me. And so I went to learn about Islam. There was a mosque near where my apartment was. There are mosques all over Istanbul. But I found that they had an imam there who spoke English. So I went to him and I asked him I wanted to learn because I've always been interested in faith-based systems. And I went to him and we met about once a week for a period, and he would fill me up with information about Islam. And then later I was learning with some other Muslims and putting two and two together, this guy was feeding me a bunch of crap. He was trying to convince me that I should join Islam because it was such a wonderful, beautiful thing, and it would be so good for me. But he was in fact lying to me, and I resented being lied to, so I walked away. And so I've had other experiences because of my work. I encountered Muslim people in the streets of Istanbul every day. I didn't live in a compound. I lived in an apartment in the economy. So I bought my groceries in local stores. I did some shopping in local stores. I rode local taxis. I walked and I mixed and mingled with people every day. And some were nice and some were not so nice, like in any society. But the ones that were not so nice were really unnice. They're just hostile because I was a Christian, and they're just obliged to be hostile to Christians. That is a part of their dogma. That is what they are taught from the day they are born. That they are superior beings, and that Christians are lesser beings, and that they can take advantage of us, they can abuse us, and that we have fewer rights than they have. And that was my first experience for a little bit over 2 years in Turkey. As I went on, I've served in other countries. I had more experiences with them, and then I went back and I spent time in Bangladesh, Muslim. I spent 4 years there. I spent a couple of years in Algeria, Muslim, and then at one point, I had a very good friend was killed when they blew up the American embassy in Beirut. And that really, really, really hit me hard. So I started studying and learning more and more in depth about why they act the way they do. And then I became part of a project with the State Department because we had had the embassy in Beirut blown up in 1963 in the spring. We moved to another building and that was blown up in October. And then the American embassy in Kuwait was partially blown up. And of course, other places have been hurt too. So the Congress threw a bunch of money at the State Department and said, do something about these embassies being blown up. So a special organization was set up where a fellow named Bob Blackburn reported directly to the Secretary of State Schultz. And there was no bureaucracy to deal with, to have to go through, and all the horsepookie that entails in an organization.
Okay.
So, and I had been in some other training, and I reported back to the Department of State after being away for 6 months, and I didn't have an onward assignment, so I asked a couple of people, and they said, oh, you go talk to Bob, because you've got a background already in the stuff that he's looking for. Because my background was that when I was in Cambodia in 1974 and 75, we had rocket attacks coming after the American embassy, and there was a lot of danger and a lot of problems, and I started doing things at the embassy that protected the embassy staff. And we had RPG grenades that blow up on a chain link fence that ran from the roof down to the ground. So we were pretty well protected there. I did similar things in Burma, and I did that in Bangladesh. So I had a background in it. I went and I talked to Mr. Blackburn, told him what I had done, and after about 5 minutes, I was already on board. He said, you've got your budget, and I'm going to assign you to a couple of embassies in North Africa and the Persian Gulf, the most high risk of all the embassies that we're going to be providing security for. And I said, okay, that's fine. What's my criteria? He said, we don't have one, just wing it.
Okay.
So I signed myself to the Army Proving Ground in Aberdeen, Maryland, and I spent a little time up there blowing things up with slow motion cameras and developing an understanding of the effects, the blast effects when they go off, and trying to find ways to mitigate that. And then I went back to the State Department. They said, we have information from the CIA that a group of people in Bahrain are building a bomb in a Chevy Suburban, and they're going to do the same type of job to the embassy there that was done in Beirut.
Uh-oh.
Go do something about it. And I went over there and went through a number of different exercises trying to get something done, and then finally I settled down with I had a team with me, of course. I didn't do this all by myself. So I had an architect, I had a civil engineer, I had an electrical engineer, I had a security engineer, and other people. So we all worked together, and I was just a team leader for the group. I made the determinations and led the teams into the embassies and stuff. And he came up with an idea. I looked at it. The next day we went out because I had the authority to check with some local contractors to see what kind of work they could do. And by the end of the day, I had picked one contractor, and I had signed a contract with him. He started work the next morning building what I called flower pots. They were actually planters because they were 3 feet high, 3 feet deep, 9 feet wide, made out of reinforced concrete and sunk into the ground with pilings, and then anchored together with aircraft cable. And I surrounded the embassy with more than 90 of these things. And they would stop a tank because of the height and the size and everything else. And within a year, they were going up all over the United States at the White House. They were not square concrete. They were round and marble clad. And you fill them up with some dirt, put some plants in them, and keep them watered. And those real high tech right there, wasn't it? And it was very, very effective. Didn't cost much money, and there was no maintenance involved. We put them all over the United States. They put them at embassies all around the world. And that's the type of stuff that I got involved in. When I did this thing in Bahrain, the Iranians were the ones who were building the bomb, the truck bomb, and they saw what was going on, and they abandoned their truck bomb. They had a fatwa issued to kill me. And then they got on their plane and went back to Iran. Well, nobody was able to kill me, but I'm still here.
Yes, you are.
I've had another fatwa cast on me here in California.
Really?
Because I've been, because about a dozen years ago, they wanted to build a mega mosque in Temecula.
Okay.
And I got involved, and I was one of the leaders in a group that opposed the mosque, and we did a lot of things. And finally, when it came down to the crunch, because the city had to do something, or they would have been pinged by Obama for not, for disobeying Obama and his Islam thing. But they put a lot of covenants and restrictions on it, and the mosque was built 4,000 square feet, not 44,000 square feet. And this really upset the local Muslim community because they wanted to capture Temecula and turn it into a Muslim paradise, whatever they want. And they were not allowed to do that. And the bigwigs in the Islamic community here sat down and had a meeting in Corona, California, about 30 miles from where I live. And they had discussions, and they were making plans on finding ways to silence me. That's the word they used. Silence is to kill me or to shut me up or bully me or intimidate me or whatever. And nothing happened on it. So I'm still here, and I'm still doing my thing. I've slowed down a little in the last couple of years because I've had some other things taking my time, but I'm getting back into it. So I'm doing a lot of things. And I'm concerned about our nation because I know that after 9/11, with President Bush in Washington and his people, they discovered that they had very little intelligence on what was going on in the Muslim world. So they went out and they hired a bunch of translators because they wanted to get all these audio tapes and TV tapes and videotapes and whatever else they could get from the Middle East to get their intelligence going. And what happened was that the Muslim Brotherhood and the Council of American Islamic Relations, they got a hold of Bush and they got a hold of the Department of Homeland Security, and they made sure that only Muslims were hired for these jobs. There are thousands of Jewish people, there are thousands of Christians from the Middle East who are fluent in Arabic, who applied for the jobs, who could have done the jobs very well. They were one and all excluded. So what happened was that the White House, the CIA, the FBI, all of these people brought in Muslims who are doing interpretations and translations and who were not always giving the straight information. So our leaders, our decision makers, were not dealing with the information that they rightfully should have had. They were being baited, they were being led astray by these Muslims who were brought into the government, who are still here. So you've got Muslims in the FBI, in Department of Homeland Security, in DEA, in the Pentagon. They are all over the place, and they are in high positions, and they are basically doing things to control and to thwart terrorist hunters and to take care of their business and to make sure that the American people and the American leadership are not doing anything to challenge them. So they're building their mosques, they're in the universities, they're in the schools, they're in the elementary schools, they're doing whatever they want, and higher-ranking people in the government who are under the influence or who are even controlled by some of these Muslims in the Council on American Islamic Relations, the Muslim Brotherhood, the Islamic Society of North America, and a whole bunch of other organizations, they have control over this thing. A lot of people that want to do something are being thwarted from trying to do it. People are working, and we're working around them, but it's not an easy thing to do because they have the law on their side. They have gotten into the FBI, and I tell you, the infiltration into the FBI is beyond what you can imagine. They are all over the place. So whenever you talk to somebody in the FBI about something Islam, they're not going to give you a regular American citizen who speaks English. They're going to set you down with a Muslim who's an infiltrator, and they will take the information, and they may not, or they may not work on it or use it. And sometimes it will be beneficial to them, and it will be not beneficial to American citizens. There was an incident again in Corona. There's a woman named Wafa Sultana. She's a diminutive Syrian woman, a educated psychiatrist who's been here in the United States and who woke up to what the differences between Islam and America and Christianity and other stuff. And she has been counseling Muslim people and Middle Eastern people, Arab speakers, for many, many years. She got on the YouTube, and she debated with a couple of imams back about 12, 13 years ago again. And she made these guys look like absolute chumps.
Hey, James Horn,
And-
can we break right now? I'm going to break
Yes.
at the top and the bottom of the hour. And folks, you're listening to James Horn. He's an Islam expert. You've heard his CV when you started the show. I want to come back, and when I do, I'm going to ask two questions when we come back to James Horn. Because if you want to find out what's really happening in the United States with regard to Islam, and then I'm going to go international after that. But I think everybody needs to have a good grasp of what Islam truly is. So I want to ask two questions when James Horn comes back. The first one, I'm going to ask what would probably be a standard innocent question that most people that aren't really informed would ask, and that would be, hey, what's so bad about Islam? And then the second question that I want to ask James Horn when we come back is there really such a thing as a moderate Muslim? Because everyone tells us there is. Folks, you're listening to James Horn. I am BZ, the bloviating Zeppelin, right here in the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Don't go anywhere. Time to go to the bathroom, do what you need to do, balance your checkbook, clean your fish tank, but come right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, where tonight I have the distinct honor and pleasure of speaking to a very well-versed gentleman who has been here before in February, I think it was February 27th, if I'm not mistaken. And again, at that time, I had the distinct pleasure of having him actually in the studio, which was grand. I mean, I love having people live in the studio. Well, Jim right now is in Southern California. We're talking to Jim Horn, an Islam expert. He has been a diplomat, worked with essentially most, if not all, of the alphabet agencies. And I had him here tonight because not only do I want to talk about Islam again, but Islam in Europe, Islam in the United States, and then also about a number of international incidents that have occurred. And then I want to come back to America and address some issues there. Before I do that, James Horn, can I ask you a favor? Can I call your cell phone? I've got the number. Can I call your cell phone and free up this number? And then there were some people that indicated that they wanted to call in if they had questions. This is the call-in line that you're on right now. So okay. I'm asking your permission for me to now call your cell phone and then bring you back on the air. Would that be acceptable to you, sir?
That's wonderful.
Okay. Let's hang up, and I'm going to call your cell phone on a different line, and then some folks may be able to call in. And I appreciate that, sir. Thank you.
All right.
So, folks, I think we're going to make this work. I'm going to call James Horn, and I believe... There we go. And I will...
Forwarded to an automatic voice message system. 951551.
Oh, boy. Okay, this is not working. Let me try this again. Do I not have the right number for him? I believe I've got the number for him. Let's call again.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message.
Why is it doing that? Okay, great. Once again, I seem to have shot myself in the head when once I had someone... Okay, well, let's do this. Hey, Jim, I'm getting voicemail on your phone. Can you pick up when I call your cell? Thank you. It's busy. Okay. Wow. You know, sometimes, especially with technology, it's just best to agree and shake hands with technology when you can. Oh, boy. Well, let's see if I can get in touch with Jim. See, that's unfortunately the bad thing about being the radio guy. Oh, here we go. There we go. How about now? Can I hear you now? Jim Horn, are you there?
If you are satisfied with your message.
Okay. Jim, are you there, sir? I'm going to hang up. Let's try it one more time.
Your call has been forwarded.
Okay. Well, all right. Sometimes, apparently, you just have to know when to say when. So I'm going to wait and see if he happens to call back on the number. And in the meantime, there are a ton of stories that I have, and they all involve, oh, here's a good one. Dave says, Jim may have Sprint. They tend to shoot shows direct to voicemail. They do that to me all the time. Darn it. I hate that when that happens. Okay, I'll tell you what. Let us try this one more time and see if I can get him. And it's just confounding as to why I cannot.
Forwarded to an automatic voice message system.
Okay. All right. So I guess I'm going to have to text him. Okay. Because it's very difficult to read you a story or go, oh, wait, here we go. Let's try this. Jim, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see you've been calling me, but my phone is not picking it up. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's weird. Okay. All right. We'll tell you what. We'll just stick with what wins. And this wins for right now. Thanks for calling back. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question that I was going to have, one of two questions, was a normal, or I can't say a normal, but a regular person who really isn't perhaps very well vested or educated about Islam would say something when listening to what you've been saying and say, oh, wait, now, aren't you blowing things out of proportion? Aren't you being just a bit reactionary? What is it about Islam that makes it something that you're just not appearing to say very nice things about Islam? And from everything that I know, Islam is a fine religion. So what makes you say those things? James Horn.
Well, because I know Islam well. I've lived in the area. I've studied the Quran 3 times. I've studied Muhammad's hadith and other things, so it tells a lot about Islam. But right now, I'm reading an old book by Salman Rushdie, Satanic Verses.
Oh, right.
And I just got started, so it's a bit revealing, but I haven't gotten far enough into it. But Islam is, for instance, they have. Are you still there?
I am, sir.
Okay, Islam. You were asking me earlier about if there are any moderate Muslims.
Yes.
There's a fellow in Arizona, Zuhdi Jasser. He's a former Navy medical officer, and he would like to bring Islam, kicking and screaming, into the 21st century. He's been working on this for about 25 years, and he has about 250 followers. He hasn't done very well. And, that's the way it is, because he is considered a blasphemer, and he has left Islam according to their teachings. And because he's saying things that they don't appreciate, he is, like me, under a fatwa. He should be silenced, because that's the way they feel about it. And a lot of people, they say, oh, I know Muhammad down the street. He's just a sweet, nice guy. And that is very, very true, because most of the Muslims who come to the United States, they have been taught, they have been schooled that they have to be polite and nice and sweet, because they are in the minority. They do not have the power and the strength and the authority to pick up and do anything brash. About 5 years ago, I went to a meeting in Orange County, California, and I was one of 2 Christians in a room with about 500 Muslims, and they had a speaker there, Tariq Ramadan. Probably people don't know about him, but he is the grandson of the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood. And he was there talking about conquering America. And he was basically saying, we don't have the numbers yet, so you have to be patient. We have to grow until we have more people and more control and more power and more influence. And at the right time, then we can move forward. But right now, you must be patient. And that is what they are doing. They're practicing patience. One of the things that is very scary is that if you go to Washington, D.C., you have about 400,000 Muslims living in Virginia, in the District of Columbia, and in Maryland. And many, many of them have taken low-level, whatever jobs in government agencies. But by being there, they can network with one another, and they have access to other things. They have access to secrets. They have access to information, and they are in positions where they can exert influence or even control over things that we want to know about, and we're not getting that information. Officials in Washington are subject to what these people want to do, and people want to try and get along. So when these people get along and they get a little pushy, people tend to back off and say, oh, okay, I'll try and get along with you. And this is one of the fallacies, because they are bullies. And they find out that we're nice people. One of the things that I've taught people is that we Americans, we are the most tolerant people in the world. We are so tolerant
yes,
that we tolerate those who will not tolerate us. And the Muslims are not tolerant people. You look at what's happening in Egypt, Christians are dying every day. In Syria and Iraq, they've almost been eradicated from those two countries by ISIS and other things going on. They no longer live in comfort. They no longer live in safety. They no longer live in peace. And we're not bringing them here as refugees because who's running the refugee programs? Muslim-influenced Christian organizations in the United States. So you've got 2 or 3 million Christian refugees living in terrible conditions in Crete and in Cyprus and in Greece. They're not being brought to the United States while the Catholic World Relief and Lutheran Society, whatever, they're all working hard to bring all the Muslims here. Why? You have to answer the question, why? They're getting money, of course. They won't do it without money. But they're under the influence to bring these people in who will not be hospitable to the American people at a certain time and point. You see it happening in Europe. Look what's happening in France. They get churches are being burned down every week. The Cathedral Notre Dame,
yes,
that was not an accidental fire.
I don't believe it was.
That fire was going up, and before the fire brigades arrived to start putting out the fire, the police were saying this is an accidental fire. There's been a video circulated, showed a guy in his white beanie and robes walking around on a balcony of the building just before the fire started. So this is what's going on. It's happening in Germany. It's happened in the Netherlands and Holland. It's happening all over. You look what's happening in England. The mayor,
Sadiq
Khan, he hates President Trump. He hates Americans. The Prime Minister of England, who has just stepped down, she doesn't like anybody who speaks up against Islam. She's taken a friend of mine who lives here in Southern California, Steve Klein, who's been very active, and he's received a letter telling him that he would never be permitted to arrive and travel in England. The same thing has happened to other people. Why? Because we speak the truth about Islam? There's a guy named Tommy something or other in England.
Tommy Robinson.
Tommy Robbins. He's very stridently anti-Islam. He's been put in jail for it.
Yes, he
crying
has.
out loud.
Yes, he has.
This is what they're doing. This is what even our media, they want to jail people. In the last 6 months, I've been to Facebook jail 4 times. Because I say something that annoys a Muslim someplace, and they've probably got a Muslim caseworker at Facebook watching everything I post on my Facebook page. So if anything I want to say something really egregious, I go to another social media page and say that. Or I do it by regular straight email to people. I'm trying to build up an email list of followers who want to hear some of this stuff. So this is what I'm doing.
I'd like to bring up a couple of points.
Our own way, because we can't go all up to the wall on Facebook because we're going to be slammed for it. You can't do it on YouTube anymore. You're going to be slammed for it. You can't do it on a number of sites. Google, for crying out loud, is shutting people down all the time. You can hardly find my books on Google because of the Islamic influence.
Makes you wonder how long they're going to be on Amazon. I'd like to bring up a couple of points to you. And I discussed this with you before. I've noticed that there are a couple of quotes here. A radical Muslim wants to behead you. A moderate Muslim wants a radical Muslim to behead you. There was a poll that was taken back in 2015, regarding Muslims. A poll of U.S. Muslims, this is even back in 2015, reveals an ominous level of support for Islamic supremacists' doctrine of Sharia and jihad. A new nationwide online survey of 600 Muslims living in the United States basically embraced supremacist notions that they believe could pose a threat to America's security. And essentially what they said is this. This was polled by the Center for Security Policy, the CSP, which said that a majority, 51%, agreed that Muslims in America should have the choice of being governed according to Sharia. More than half polled believed either that they should have the choice of American or Sharia courts, or that they should have their own tribunals to apply Sharia. So, moderate Muslims, I submit my thought is that there is no real thing as a moderate Muslim. There are, however, Muslims that are not doing it right in terms of demands from the Middle Eastern version, at least as practiced, of Islam. I have a couple of pull quotes that are in your book here, and I'm looking at it. I'm referencing your book, Experiencing Islam. And in the process of reading this, I came across a couple of what I consider to be very important and salient quotes in your book. And there's one that says, the attacks of 9/11 were just as things should be. Then there was another quote that was in your book. Government of the people, by the people, for the people, should not perish from the earth. And that's the last thing that Islam essentially wants. Your book is a wealth of quotes and a wealth of knowledge. And I would highly recommend it to anybody that wants to learn more about Islam. And then Islam in the Workplace, your other book, that's another one that I would highly recommend to everyone. There's also
that's a good book. It's an easy read. Someone can sit down and read it in a couple of hours on a subway ride or whatever, and they get a world of information about how Islam works in the workplace, in a grocery store, in a supermarket, in a factory. However it works, they are there, and their purpose is to try and intimidate and bully their bosses, their supervisors, and everybody around them, so that they can play the dominant role. And they're doing it, and they're being successful with it, because so many employers, so many bosses, so many company owners have chosen to remain ignorant about what they're dealing with until it's almost too late. And companies like Motorola, Dell Computer, others have suffered consequences in the United States that happened 15 years ago that are still hurting them today, because they've had Muslims working, and the Muslims came along and started making demands. The companies said no, and they found out that they were crosswise with the Department of Justice, and Department of Justice, who has a lot of influence from Muslims within the organization, and Muslims who control legislators. We've got a senator that's very famous called Dick Turban.
Yeah.
And, anything they want, they get, because they go to him, or they go to Chucky Schumer, who has a huge Muslim constituency, and they get what they want by going to these senators and yelling and screaming, and the companies wind up getting stiffed. The big part of it is in the meatpacking industry. They're bringing all the Somalis over from Africa, who butcher the chickens and all that kind of stuff. And they decided they want to have special time for prayers. They wanted this, they wanted that, and they would shut the plants down to get their way. And the companies had to accommodate them because the courts were against them. Islamic influence in our courts is rampant. You're talking about Sharia courts. If a woman wants a divorce, she has to go to a Sharia court. In a Sharia court, she loses. It's a given deal. She loses the children, she loses the home, and she's often just thrown out on the street trying to get a divorce from some guy who was abusing her and who probably has 2 or 3 more wives on the side. So this is one of the things that's really egregious about what they're doing in the United States, because so many women come here, they want to try and get some freedom, and they're subjected to the abuses of their husbands and their fathers and their brothers and everybody else. There are some exceptions. One is a wonderful lady named Noni Darwish. She came from Egypt. She was married. She looked around. She learned English. Well, she knew some English, and she figured things out fairly quickly. and she got away from the abuser husband that she had, and she's gotten out, and she's a teacher. She talks about Islam all the time. She has a couple of terrific books out there that talk about being a woman in Islamic society and how horrible it is. And there are a few of these people, but these people have to have respect. They have to get more notoriety. And, of course, the Council on American Islamic Relations, everybody else, they're trying to shut them down at every opportunity. So they don't have a voice on Facebook. They don't have a voice on YouTube because that's being blocked because of the Islamic influence in there. Facebook, I believe, hired several thousand Muslims about a year ago up in Silicon Valley, and they're in there, and they're policing the community standards, and they have their own interpretation of the community standards. So if I say something crosswise, I'm out for 30 days. Eventually, I'll probably be thrown out forever. I don't know, but this is where we need other people, to come into the platforms where we can say what we want to say without being kicked off or shut down or something like that, or intimidated like is happening on Facebook. I use Facebook, yes, but it's for some social stuff, some family stuff, but nothing really serious about Islam, because I know if I do, I'll be out of business for 30 days or 60 days or however long they arbitrarily decide. This is why it's so wonderful that the antitrust is finally starting to take a look at Google, at Facebook, at YouTube.
But only because things have gotten so terribly bad, so terrible.
Yes.
James Horn, folks, we're talking to James Horn tonight. He's a diplomat, an expert on Islam, etc. We've got 2 more minutes before the top of the hour break. There's a quote that I ran past you last time, and I'm hoping that in 2 minutes you can explain it. It's a Middle Eastern proverb which goes something like this: me against my brother, me and my brother against my cousin, me and my brother and my cousin against the stranger. And so in about a minute and a half or 2 minutes, can you explain what that proverb means and how people should interpret that?
That is fundamental to Islamic thinking. They can never have really, really close friends, because their friends are, in one way or another, going to be their enemy at one point or another. This is, but they at the same time, they can be against each other. But if somebody else comes along who is more of a problem, then they will ally themselves temporarily to go after that third party. For instance, if the crunch really comes down, the Shia Muslims in Persia and the Sunni Muslims in Iraq could actually join together to come after American forces, because we are the ultimate enemy. We're the great Satan. They're the little Satans. But this, it's a complicated thing in their society, because me and my brother, they have a father who maybe has 3 or 4 wives. So is their brother a brother, or is their brother a half-brother, or is their brother a cousin? They don't know, because their language even kind of obscures some of that stuff. But it's just part of the thing. They are for themselves, and that is the number one thing. You got to be for yourself. It's me against my brother. It's me against the world. I've got to do it. So this is where they get this form of insanity, where they think they've got to be first, and they've got to be right all the time, and they can't tolerate not winning. They don't do well in sports because they can't tolerate not winning. And this is the way they look at society. This is their outlook for the world.
We're going to have to take a break. James Horn, we're going to have to take a break right now, the bottom of the hour. We will be back. Okay. We're going to change gears when we come back. Folks, we're talking to James Horn, diplomat, counterterrorism expert, and also knows a ton about Islam. When we come back, I want to go international, and a number of incidents occurred today that I want to talk to James Horn about. I want to get his input on Iran. I want to get his input on the bombings. And then I have a myriad of stories, a number of stories that I'd like to go over with James Horn and have him opine on, well, all of these various topics. We got a ton of stuff to talk about. So, James Horn, thanks for being here tonight. Folks, we're going to take a break and be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we're into the second hour on BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. Live and direct from the SHR Media Network. Gotta tell you this, you can follow me on Twitter at BZEP, at BZEP. Like me and follow me, if you would please, on my Facebook page, Bloviating Zeppelin. Follow and like the SHR Media Facebook page. And if you would, subscribe to the SHR Media YouTube channel. Click notifications, give our videos a thumbs up. We got a whole bunch of great hosts, great videos, and great shows. And I have a great guest here tonight. That is James Horn. He's in Southern California. Originally had him in my in the studio back in February. And James, let's transition now if we can. There's a story that just came out today. A few things happened to blow up in the Strait of Hormuz. Here's from CBSNews.com, and I find this very interesting. The headline is, U.S. military releases video that it says shows Iran removing a mine from an oil tanker before an explosion. The U.S. military released a video today, Thursday, said it showed Iran's Revolutionary Guard removing an unexploded limpet mine from one of the two oil tankers targeted in the Strait of Hormuz. The black and white footage, as well as still photographs released by the U.S. military Central Command, appeared to show the limpet mine on the Kokuka Courageous. That is a ship. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said U.S. intelligence pointed to Iran as being responsible for the attacks. Iran, of course, has denied being involved in the attack. Well, there are a lot of geopolitical implications in this, James Horn, and I would suggest that the impetus behind this is generally that we're being rather effective with regard to our limitations on the importation of various goods and into Iran. They're not very happy with it. This is the Trump administration and not the Obama administration that sent them $1.4 billion in the back of a C-47 on pallets in the dead of night, right out of a Robert Ludlum novel. So they're not real happy with us right now. I think they want to make us pay. They're doing that. Well, the ship that got blown up today, I believe, was a Japanese tanker, if I'm not mistaken. That was
two of them, one Norwegian, one Japanese.
Yes, there were two today. And I think, and this is where I would like your response. I believe the goal of this is to make us hurt, because there's every likelihood that oil could go up, that a lot of the companies are going to be clenching their sphincters in fear because they think that Iran is going to shut down the Strait of Hormuz geographically. And it's also a get back at Trump. And the other thing is that I think one of their hopes is that, knowing that it's coming up to an election year, if we can affect the Americans and make them pay at the pump, that they might be able to overthrow Donald John Trump, the guy with a dead orange cat on his head. So am I kind of in the ballpark with regard to the geopolitics and the explosions that occurred on tankers today? James Horn.
Well, they're trying to pressure Trump. They're trying to humiliate him, and they're very desperate. The leadership in Iran is absolutely desperate. They're running out of money. They're running out of resources. They've got a very restive population. And whenever you have a banana republic government with a population that are getting restive, they like to provoke something to try and get something going where they can rally the troops around themselves if they can. And this is, I think, what the game they're playing. They're trying to rally the troops around themselves. They're trying to embarrass Trump, and they're trying to intimidate other people. They've blown up a Japanese ship, they've blown up a Norwegian ship, and they've damaged some other ships. And anything that they say they're removing a mine from a ship is a form of subterfuge. They might have put one mine there and then go out there and say, "Oh, by the way, Norwegian, we found a mine on your ship. We want to take it off." So they make a big show about removing it, but they leave the other one there and it blows up. This is subterfuge, and it's not very effective, but this is what they're doing.
And or they're trying to remove evidence. The other information I've heard, maybe you can tell me if this is correct or not, is that apparently they may have also used torpedoes. And if that's true, then we have a carrier group, the Lincoln Carrier Group, which is in the region as well. So that is of some concern, not just to commercial shipping, but to military, our carrier group, if nothing else.
Well, it's entirely possible it could have used torpedoes, and if they do, we probably have satellite images and proof of that having taken place, but we're probably not going to release it for obvious reasons. But we have a fleet out there. The Iranians are trying to upset things, and we've done it in the past. We can go in there now. We can send the fleet back in there, organize convoys, and escort 10 or 20 ships out at a time. And we can have our PT boats, we can have our fast boats, we can have our destroyers, we can have submarines, we can have aircraft in the air in all sorts of manner to protect those ships going in and out through the Straits of Hormuz. We've done it before. We can and we probably should do it again, because that will really put a clamp on the Iranian way of doing things, and it will set them back a little bit, because they are a desperate group of people right now. Again, like I mentioned, they've got a population who are very restive and who are not in the dark. The Iranian people are, by and large, pretty well educated, but you've got this gang of thugs like you had in Nazi Germany, like you had in the Soviet Union, who are just absolute bastards trying to rule and control the country. This is what they had in South Africa, is growing up there in the former Rhodesia.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things that they're doing. They're destroying the country. They're destroying the people. And they're trying to do things to intimidate us, to cause our Democrats in Washington and the Congress and the Senate to come down hard on Pompeo, to come down hard on Trump, to give relief to Iran. And the Iranians, by the way, they have a lot of effective people. Again, we've got a lot of Muslims in Washington, and they are probably involved in every lobbyist organization.
Yes.
They probably have people wandering up and down the halls of the Congress and the Senate, pigeonholing and going after congressmen and senators right and left to try and press their case and to cause the United States to shake loose and break away and start giving them a break. So you've got this thing going on in Washington, and it's probably pretty hot and heavy. You don't see it, you don't hear about it, but you got the Trump administration who are holding to their guns. You got a strong Secretary of State, you got a strong National Security Advisor, you got a strong Secretary of Defense, and these people are holding the bulwark, I guess, against whatever the Muslim lobbyists can throw up. And they're trying very hard by causing incidents overseas. They're giving credence to their threats, saying we can do something about it. If you don't do something, we're going to do something. And this is the kind of stuff that they're going through. So yeah, you can expect some more attacks on some more ships, but I think you're probably going to see the United States Navy, the Saudi Navy, the other navies are going to start getting involved in there, and they're going to start escorting ships in and out to make sure they're protected and safe. And anybody comes along with a speedboat, shooting a pistol at somebody, they're going to find themselves evaporated. Like I've said, almost every ship that we have out there now, they have Gatling guns on each side. And a ship, if they want to fire on an approaching boat, they can lay down about 20,000 rounds a minute. And that will vaporize anything that comes near if we want to do that. Our aircraft carriers probably have a dozen Gatling guns on each side, plus we have surface-to-surface rockets. We have all sorts of defenses on those ships that can really, really protect them from anything coming, including high-speed torpedoes. I think the Iranians have created a high-speed torpedo about 15 years ago. I have no doubt that we have countermeasures for that already in place, and if they fire anything at us, it will not be effective. We're not going to go out and put a ship like the Abraham Lincoln out there, and to be a target for some crazy mullah to go and try and blow up. We're not in the business of becoming targets. We're in the business of eliminating targets, and that's something that they're going to have to understand. And they'll probably, in the next few days or maybe next few weeks, it will come to pass. Remember, we sent out 4 B-52s. They're probably sitting out there at Diego Garcia, loaded up and fueled, and they've got BLU-82, those
right,
buster bombs.
Yeah, the Moab bombs, which are massive.
They're massive, and they could fly over to an Iranian oil facility on the coast and obliterate it, and the Iranians would not be able to export any oil products for a couple of years while they try and rebuild. They could go into the air. The B-52 can fly above where most of these rockets would go. And we would also have electric countermeasure planes along with those B-52s. They could fly over parts of Iran with impunity and obliterate mountains that they have their uranium manufacturing or their bomb manufacturing facilities in. Remember that about a year ago, Israel came out of Iran with an entire library of scientific data on the Iranian bomb and rocket program. So we know all about what they have, probably know exactly where all of it is, and that is to the chagrin of the mullahs who think that we may have forgotten about it. We haven't forgotten about it.
No.
We have people paying attention to that stuff all the time. And our intelligence operations that do that stuff are superior to anything that the Iranians can even think we have. We have computer systems where we have satellites will fly over and take a group of pictures of a piece of the desert and then fly back over 2 days later and 2 days later and every 2 days. And they've got computers that will analyze those photographs. And if they see one bush move to a different place, aha, we have a target. And that is the kind of technology we have. That is the capability we have. And they cannot hide their stuff. They cannot build a rocket launcher underground unless they put every stone back in the same exact place every day. And if they forget it one day, we'll know it. I mean, that's how thorough, that's how exacting our intelligence systems are. And it's all technical. We don't have people on the ground doing that. We don't need people on the ground doing that. We have the technology to do it. And they sometimes seem to think that they can pull stuff and get away with it, and they won't. And this is one of the things they're afraid of. They've been threatening to do something, but they know that if they actually do something against an American military ship or something like that, they will be held to pay, and they will not like the consequences. And President Trump is there with his Secretary of State, with his National Security Advisor, with his Secretary of Defense, and they are ready to deliver. And they will deliver at the snap of a finger. And this is what terrifies the Iranians. They can run a bluff, and that's what they're trying to do now is bluff. And this is what Islam is about: bluff and bluster, bullying and bluster, bluffing and bluster. And you know, this is classic Islamic subterfuge, which is not very subterfuge. They think they're pulling something smart. They're not, and they know that. We know that. I think we know better than they do. They just are causing some mayhem. They're hurting a couple ships. They've killed a few fish, but they're not going to get away with very much out there with that. And this is part of the whole thing that's going on out there. You've had recent incidences with India and Pakistan. Of course, they've been going after each other in Kashmir ever since 1948, when the Indian subcontinent was split up. And again, they lie to each other. And this is one of the things that's so fun, that with the Muslims, a Muslim can lie to another Muslim, and the other Muslim is obliged to believe them. If a Muslim lies to you and you call them out on their lie, you've insulted them and you are in danger.
As you have.
This is one thing I think I wrote about in my book. when a Muslim tells me, trust me, the first thing I do is put on my tall boots because I know the BS is going to flow. and if I refuse to believe them, then they are insulted and they get angry at me for not believing their lies. And this is a part of their culture, unfortunately. And this is what they do. This is why they're so distrustful of one another, because they really know in their hearts that they're being lied to, but they can't go about and shoot back about it because that's the way it is.
Do you think the potential exists at this point? And I am grateful. I am very grateful, James Horn, that we have Donald John Trump in the presidency right now, that we have Mike Pompeo, and that we have John Bolton. Some people say that John Bolton is too much the saber rattler. I don't know. We seem to be getting results. And also I noticed that Iran has accelerated the enrichment of uranium, and that's right out of a report from the IAEA, that they said that Iran has followed through on a threat to accelerate its production of enriched uranium, said the head of a UN atomic watchdog, departing from his usual guarded language to say he was worried about increasing tension. So, question to you, James Horn, using your great training, education, and experience, where might you suggest that this situation with Hormuz and Iran is going?
It's going to where the Iranians are going to back down and they're going to try and come to the negotiating table, but they're apprehensive about doing that because they know that if they come to the negotiating table with Donald Trump, they're not going to have Barack Obama there to lick their butts and do whatever they want. So this is where they're having a real problem because they know that they cannot win in the negotiating table by BSing the great Donald Trump, who knows more about negotiating than they will ever understand. And he's a master. We should be very grateful that we have President Trump because he is our greatest national security asset right now. And the Iranians can't figure out how to deal with him. They're trying to bully things. They're trying to, shake up a couple of ships in the Straits of Hormuz and make a bunch of thrusts. But it's basically they are the paper tiger right now.
Let's move on from Iran and let's focus now and move over towards Europe. I found an article on the Gatestone Institute, and the headline is this: Sweden's self-inflicted mess. The scared girls of Uppsala, children of ISIS terrorists. The article says, according to Amnesty International reports in Sweden, rape investigations are under-prioritized. There are excessively long waiting times for the results of DNA analyses. There is not enough support for rape victims, and not enough work is done for preventive purposes. In 2017, a Swedish police report basically said vulnerable areas in 2017, commonly known as no-go zones or lawless areas, showed that in Sweden, there are 61 such areas in Sweden. They encompass 200 criminal networks consisting of an estimated 5,000 criminals. 23 of those areas were especially critical, and the Swedes don't want to admit this. And folks, why am I talking about rapes in Sweden? Well, oddly enough, it all happened after what they term immigrants came into Sweden, courtesy of Angela Merkel, inviting almost everyone from Syria, got a carte blanche invitation into Europe. And so the Swedes are paying the price for it now. Well, basically, every Western country in Europe is paying the price for this now. And I submit, see, the other thing that I'm sure that you already know, I'm not speaking out of turn when I say this, is all the administrative and governmental and police powers that be in Europe are attempting to suppress all of this information. And there was a time when they were telling you that there's absolutely no such damn thing as a no-go zone, when, oddly enough, Angela Merkel herself admitted about a year and a half ago, well, okay, I guess there might be some no-go zones in Europe. Of course, they never wanted to talk to us about it. So why am I mentioning that kind of thing in Europe? First, is it a shock, James Horn, that we have that kind of a situation in Europe?
I am very troubled by what's happening in Europe. I am obviously of Swedish descent or Scandinavian descent, and I wrote a letter about a year ago that was published in Sweden, and it was a lamentation. Oh, Sweden! And I was talking about how Sweden has been suffering, and their leadership has been faltering. They're not protecting the citizens. And I was calling, where is your Viking blood? Where are your Viking genes? When are your Viking blood going to percolate up to the surface? And when are you going to start fighting back to protect your women and your children? And that was published in several magazines and newspapers. I don't know if it's still floating around, but it's called Oh Sweden. It's on my blog. And it's a lamentation that would apply to any one of the other countries, Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium. Belgium is in a serious problem. They've invited all these Muslims in, and the Muslims are having 5, 6, 7, 8 children per family. By the year 2050, Belgium will be a majority Muslim population. When that happens, the shit will really hit the fan. It's already hitting the fan now, because you've got the no-go zones where the police can't go, where the authorities can't go, where they have established their own Sharia governments within the countries that they are in. And yes, in Germany, you've got gangs, Muslim gangs, you've got Turkish gangs, you've got Syrian gangs, and you've got a whole bunch of others. Again, they hate each other, but they hate the Germans more. And that is part of the problem that Merkel, I don't know what was thinking with her, but she's, a socialist. Oh, we can take care of everything. We can make these people part of us, and we can absorb them. Well, the French tried that 50 years ago, 75 years ago, and they got their butts kicked all up and down the Mediterranean in Algeria. But Merkel thinks she can pull something off like that. May tried that in England. She lost her tail. And things are going to hopefully change in England, but England has been so much infiltrated. There's so much heavy Muslim influence in England that they may be beyond salvation.
And fear. I submit, James Horn, there's a lot of fear in Europe, and I think that's what certain elements of Islam want to bring here as well. We've got 2 more minutes to go before the bottom of the hour break. I want to point out this from the article that I was reading. It said the scared girls in Uppsala are only a small part of the entire picture. According to the latest national safety report, 4 out of 10 women are afraid to walk outside. Almost a quarter of the population chooses a different route or another mode of transportation as a result of anxiety about crime. Among women aged 20 to 24, 42% say that they often opted for another route or another mode of transportation because they felt insecure and worried about being subjected to crime. What they're not stating again and glossing over, crime, okay, by whom? Crime by whom? They're not stating it.
They don't want to express it, but the crime is Muslim crime. Sweden, before the Muslims came in 60 years ago, was a relatively crime-free country.
Yes.
They didn't have gangsters. They didn't have thugs. That's why they had a form of socialism that seemed to function because people were so homogeneous. The homogeneity is long gone, and they are trying to milk over, to wash over the fact that their women are unsafe. Their girls are unsafe. Their little boys are unsafe the minute they walk out of the house without being escorted. And this is where my lamentation came. When are you going to stand up? When is your Viking blood going to come back to the surface? When are you going to come back and start fighting for yourselves because you're being overrun by a bunch of barbaric savages and you're allowing this to happen? Shame on you.
Exactly. Shame on
Same
them.
thing. Go ahead.
Shame on them. We're going to have to take a break. We're going to come right back. We're talking to James Horn. I am the Bloviating Zeppelin. This is the Berserk Bobcat Saloon, and you're listening to the SHR Media Network right here on, well, Berserk, the Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's the final 25 minutes of the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. Right here on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com for all your fine hosts. Tonight we're speaking to James Horn. There are a couple of things that James brought up earlier in the show, and I have two articles that I'd like to go over with him and then get his input on it because of some comments that James Horn made a little bit earlier. Here's an article from Reuters, and this just occurred, not too terribly long ago. Knife-wielding attackers interrupted a French church service and forced the priest to his knees and slit his throat. And then here's another story. This is again by the Gatestone Institute, where it says, rarely reported by the media anymore, persecution of Christians in March 2019. In 2018 alone, 1,063 attacks on Christian churches or symbols, crucifixes, icons, statues, were registered in France. I went to the police with 8 pages full of threats. The police advised me to delete my picture from my website. It's strange, isn't it? I'm not doing anything wrong. Why would I need to hide? I live in a free country. That's a quote from a guy from the Netherlands. An Iranian female, asylum seeker, was sarcastically informed in her rejection letter that you affirmed in your record that Jesus is your savior, but then claimed that he would not be able to save you from the Iranian regime. It is therefore considered that you have no conviction in your faith, and your belief in Jesus is half-hearted. That's from the Daily Mail in the United Kingdom. When it comes to violence between Muslims and non-Muslims, the news in March was dominated, of course, by the Christchurch massacres in New Zealand, where on the 15th, an Australian man killed 51 Muslims in 2 mosques. The report citing that at least 4,305 Christians were murdered by Muslims because of their faith in 2018, and that 300 million Christians, overwhelmingly in the majority Muslim countries, were subjected to violence, referring to the persecution of Christians by Muslims as the most egregious example of human right violations in today's world. Stop here just for a second. Now, James Horn, you mentioned and referenced the burning of the Church of Notre Dame. And I heard 2 things because I happen to listen to Fox News. And these 2 things were from Neil Cavuto and the Shepherd. What's his name? Shepherd. On Fox News. They got people from France, not simply, columnists or people who write opinion pieces, but these are people living in France who were actual administrators who on 2 separate shows on Fox from 2 separate hosts began to attempt to tell Shepard Smith and Neil Cavuto that at this point in time in France, Muslims were attacking Christian symbols and Catholic churches, and both Shepard Smith and Neil Cavuto literally cut them off that day and followed it up, or that time that they were speaking, and followed it up by saying, well, we can't hear things like that. This is completely unsubstantiated, and we shouldn't be having this on our air, when in fact, it's absolutely correct. Or again, am I talking out of my hat? James Horn.
With that, and what is happening is that self-censorship to protect the Muslims.
Yes.
This is what is taking place in the United States. That is what is taking place in a lot of different things, because they are afraid that if they say something, somebody may spit on them when they walk out the door, something like that. These people are just terribly afraid of themselves, and they do not have the courage to do the job as they're supposed to do, is to report the facts and the truth when they're available. And to try and hold that stuff back is a sign of cowardice. And that is what we have in our American media.
Yes.
We have this kind of stuff going on all the time. You try and find out something from the police now. You go to the police station hey, something happened over here. Do you have any information on it? They won't tell you, because even if it's not classified, even if whatever, they hold that things back, they hide it, and they protect it. And you go to, say, in your town, you can in Sacramento, you can go to the police. You can say, how many pimps have been arrested in the last 90 days, and can you give me their names? They will not give you the names, because a lot of those pimps are Muslims, okay? Their masters have been trapping women and then enslaving them. And that is what's happening in New York. That's what's happening in Los Angeles, happening in Chicago. It's happening all over the United States. This is where these parasites prey on women, and they've got a very good technique that I'm familiar with, because my mother was a cop in Minneapolis 60 years ago, and she knew about how it worked. And I talked to other police when I was just a teenager. I was curious, how did these guys do this stuff? And they taught me how these guys managed to get these young girls entrapped, and then they bring them over. It's a very subtle thing, but it's a psychological thing that these women submit to. They actually submit to this type of abuse, and then they're used, and they know they're being abused, and by the time they're being abused, they don't know how to fight back. This is what's happening in this country, and it's a terrible thing. It's happening in Europe. You find out about these things all the time. You hear about, a 13-year-old girl in England was held by these Muslims for 6 months and raped 650 times. You hear about it after the fact, but you don't hear about it happening every day where it's happening every day. These things just kind of squeak out once in a while. And this is what we're dealing with. We have a press, we have a media, we have law enforcement agencies. Nobody is willing to step up and talk about it. I've talked to the chief of the sheriff here in Riverside County, where I live in. He didn't want to talk about it. Why? Why do they not want to talk about it? Are they so terrified of their own constituency that some guy in the Council on American and Islamic Relations is going to get his big Arab nose out of joint and start raising hell about something? They don't want to deal with it. We have to deal with it. We have to upset these people. We have to embarrass these people. We have to go after them and deal with them in a appropriate way. But right now, we're letting them deal with us. They control our media. Fox News, like you said, Shepard Smith, Neil Cavuto, they're so afraid of being criticized by their own management, which is in bed with the Muslims in many ways. You have to understand that several years ago, one of the two Murdoch sons got involved with, I think it was Al-Walid bin Talal in Saudi Arabia. And they started up a Saudi satellite TV, Fox-like program. Maybe it's Al Jazeera, I'm not sure. Well, Al Jazeera was in Qatar. But the Saudis did it, and they brought in the two Murdoch brothers, who put up 50% of the money, who put up the money for the management and the leadership, but the Saudis have the control because it's in Saudi Arabia. Anytime you do business in Saudi Arabia, you must have a Saudi partner, and the Saudi partner owns or controls 51% of the business. And the Murdochs were into the Saudi program for billions of dollars, okay, or millions of dollars, and they're kind of out there on a long branch. Then when Bill O'Reilly started coming out with, you may remember 15 years ago, he had a segment once a week where you talk about, and he would pillory some Saudi prince or princess or something like that doing some crap here in the United States, and then all of a sudden he stopped because Al-Walid bin Talal came in and with some partners, they bought 20% of Fox.
Wonderful.
They still hold 20% of Fox. And with that much clout on the board of directors, they do indeed censor Fox. That's part of the reason O'Reilly had his program. He was talking about this stuff. It was immensely popular. Every week, 20 minutes, he would take a Saudi princess in Arizona about who's abusing her slave or her whatever servant, and then all of a sudden one day he stopped talking about it. That was when the Saudis bought a controlling interest or a powerful interest in Fox and started censoring. Okay, and this happening with all of the networks. It's happening with the magazines. It's happening with the newspapers. The Saudis have, or the Persian Gulf Arabs have spent trillions of dollars in this country. The Saudi embassy alone has a budget, I believe, right now, which is like $10 billion a year to bribe and control people. And they've been doing this stuff for years and years, and it's insidious because it stretches and gets out more and more. The Saudis fund, or the Arabs fund, the Muslim Students Association, which have offices on nearly every university campus in the United States. And they get out there and they bully the professors, they bully the managers, they bully the deans, they bully the other students, and they have effectively taken control of a lot of the campuses. That's why you have no more free speech zones on the campuses. Matter of fact, a friend of mine, movie director and producer John Sullivan, is got a trailer, and he's going to be putting a movie out in November called No Safe Zone. He's talking about the fact that there is no freedom of speech on university campuses anymore. And if you look behind the scenes, it goes back to the Muslims and the influence that they exert on those university campuses. So you got students going to college who are being brainwashed, and they can't learn the truth because the truth is not allowed. It's not permitted anymore. Same thing in our high schools, same thing in our elementary schools. In San Diego, here we had a deal. It almost went all the way through, but the Council on American Islamic Relations got in bed with the San Diego School Board, and they started introducing Sharia law in the classrooms with elementary schools.
Wonderful. Perfect.
Where Muslim boys have rights over non-Muslim boys and girls. And that was right here in our own backyard. Probably happening in Sacramento and other communities all over the country. People have to wake up to this stuff and start saying, my God, what are they doing to our children? Right now, people don't seem to know. And this goes back to something I learned many, many years ago, again, through law enforcement and contacts and stuff like that. 10 to 20% of our children in the United States are throwaways. And what I mean by throwaways is that people have children, and they keep them and they feed them, but they don't control them, they don't educate them, they don't care. And at a certain point, these kids, when they're 13, 14, 15 years old, they're out on their own doing anything they want and getting away with it, being protected. This is
that's why gangs exploded in the 80s, because single parents, single mothers were having children out of wedlock and with males completely absent, and gangs were substituted for the new family. And so if I'm extrapolating this correctly, it's the situation that, say, for example, Muslims recognize and realize what's going in here. They're already grooming kids. They're already grooming in the jails and the prisons. And they've been doing that for quite some time. James Horn.
They've been doing that. They're grooming our children from elementary school. And they're teaching children that if you're not a Muslim, you are second class and that you have to obey what the Muslims tell you to do.
It's norming Islam is what it is. It's norming Islam.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that I don't understand. I'm not sure that you'll even be able to explain it to me. What I don't understand is the people that are supporting Islam, the people that are supporting Ilhan Omar, for example, leftists, Democrats, the press, what I call the American media maggots, that if Muslims were to regain or keep or find control of the United States, leftists and Democrats would be the first persons and groups to be cast aside because they are female-friendly, they're LGBT-friendly, and this is something with which Islam has They will brook no acceptance of anything. So the people that are embracing them are the first persons that would be removed from an all-Muslim society. I don't get that part, James Horn.
The socialists, the Democrats, the progressives are so weak-willed, so unable to think a cognitive thought without being told how to think, that they are susceptible to anything that comes along who will tell them what to do, because they're looking for leadership, and the Muslims are providing the type of leadership that they can't provide for themselves because of their own willful ignorance. They understand that there's something going on, but they don't know how to deal with it, and they don't have the courage to deal with it, so they just lay down for it. And this is what's happening in our country. And these progressives, at some point, if the Muslims take over, the first ones who are going to experience the knife across the throat and to perform the Daniel Pearl gurgle will be the progressives and the socialists and the Democrats, because they're so weak and so simple, they won't be able to resist or fight back. And this is one of the sad things about our country. This is what Angela Merkel is facing. She doesn't know how to push back. She doesn't know how to protect the German people from the worst enemies they can imagine. I'm beside myself. I'm getting a little bit carried away right now, because this is a sad, tragic fact of life. We have our own leadership who are so weak-willed, who's so spineless, that they cannot stand up to anybody who will abuse them. They'll just lay down for it. That's what's happening in Sweden. The socialists. They're so weak-willed that they're just allowing their country to be overrun. Same thing in France. You've got, like you said, 1,000 churches a year being burned up. You've got priests being killed. You've got all these other atrocities taking place. It's happening in Germany. I'm not sure which cities in Germany are the worst right now, but you've got a couple. I think one is Dusseldorf was really terrible. Cologne is another one was really terrible. And this is, the Germans are losing control of their country. The French have lost control of their country. The French are an example. I mean, the French went into North Africa. They conquered Algeria. They were there for 150 years. They tried to make Algeria, a beautiful country, into a part of France. And the Muslims stood up and fought back. They pushed them out. They beat the crap out of the French. And then the French go back to France, and they lick their wounds. And then they say, okay, come on, Muslims, you beat the hell out of us. Now why don't you come over here and beat us up in our own country? You know, how stupid can you be?
I think it goes back, especially with Angela Merkel and World War II and a percentile of Europe. I think it goes back to what I've labeled them for some time, I call them GAUPs, guilty, overeducated white people. And I think Angela Merkel was saying in effect that she believed Germany, for whatever combination of reasons, and yes, she was a German socialist, that her job is to make sure that Germany atones. It must atone for what it's done in the past and what she has. I think history will prove in 20, 30, 40 years that it will have been one person, Angela Merkel, who happened to be the focal point of what was the beginning of the downfall of Western and Eastern Europe, with an exception. And I find this interesting, and I'd like your input on this also, James Horn. Western Europe is guilty, guilty, guilty. Eastern Europe appears not to be having so much. Hungary is not putting up with a lot of this crap. Poland doesn't seem to be putting up with much of this crap. Orban seems to be leading in Hungary a pushback against this, also against the EU in Brussels. They're having a terrible time trying to get him to come around, and he's not. And I'm kind of curious, James Horn, if you have any idea of why it is that Eastern Europe, they're not being quite so cooperative.
Well, the Eastern Europe is not cooperating because they have a lot longer and stronger and better founded history of dealings with Islam. If you look at Eastern Europe, Romania, Hungary, Romania has fought some terrible battles with the Muslims. The eastern part of Austria, they were dealt harshly by the Muslims. The Serbia, my God, they have been fighting with the Muslims for 1,000 years. So those countries, they know, they understand, because they have a history, and it's a well understood history of what they've had to deal with the Muslim invaders. But the Western Europeans have not had Muslims invade their own country, except for Spain. The Spanish seem to have forgotten. But we still have people like Charles Martel in our memories and the history who have beaten the Muslims back and helped protect Europe from Muslim incursions. But now you have people like Angela Merkel, Macron, and a few others who are just laying down like rugs for this nonsense. And this is why the EU is having some serious problems internally, because some of the countries in the EU are saying, no, we know better, and we would like to school you, Angela, if you will open your mind and listen. But you're a hardcore East German communist, and you think you are right and that everybody else is wrong, and that you are one of the 5% who should rule the world, and you want to tell everybody how to live. And that is the problem with Angela Merkel. And the other Germans are like that. I spent a month when I was in the Navy. I had a special deal where I lived with a West German family, and Herr Zeman had been a SS officer. So he and I spoke some German. I learned a lot of German because we would sit around and talk every evening over a couple of beers. And he told me a lot of things about Germany and about the German people, about how and why he became a Nazi and an SS officer and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things that are very, very significant, he said the German people need a leader. And if a good leader comes along, they will stick their noses behind him and they'll follow that leader right off a cliff like a bunch of lemmings. And that's exactly what they did with Hitler. And that's what they're doing with Merkel. She's a leader, and the rest of the Germans are like lemmings, and they will follow her right off of the cliff. It's so bad. It's so sad. It's so tragic. But this is part of the German mentality.
It is sad. It's tragic. You're absolutely correct. Folks, It's just about time to go to wrap it up. James Horn, you have been here tonight for an entire 2 hours, and I thank you ever so kindly for that. Folks, I'm going to bring this up here and show you on video. I have this book. I'm going to be getting his other. This is Experiencing Islam, Becoming Islam Aware, and Exposing Corruption, Sharia. Also his book that I'm going to order, Islam in the Workplace, because it's here. It's now. And, oh no, BZ, no, come on, get off your high horse. There's nothing wrong with a Muslim. Apparently you weren't listening to the show. So James Horn, thank you again, sir, ever so kindly for being here tonight. I'm going to ask again, would you be interested in coming on the show again, sir?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, great. And we will make that happen. Thank you, sir. God bless. Good night and take care.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. What a great interview, James Horn. Get his books. I'm going to have him back again. This is a programming note. I seldom have the luxury of being able to make things, appointments in advance. But in terms of programming, I want to let you guys know that Ralph Chittum's is going to be in the Saloon next week, Tuesday night. And he's going to be talking most specifically about the Equality Act and how the alleged Equality Act is going to very much impact religion and many, many aspects of American life. It's going to impact them bigly, shall we say. Then I've got a new gentleman, Earl Jackson, that I contacted, who is frequently on Twitter and social media. He has his own radio show. I'm going to have him on Thursday night. And then also July the 16th, next month, July 16th, an author that I've had on 3 times before here in the Saloon, named Matthew Betley. On July 16th, his new book comes out. His agent asked me and solicited me if Matt could be on the show on Tuesday night, July the 16th, to promote his new book. And they're sending me a copy, and I would love to have Matt. He's going to be here. And I feel especially honored because that's the exact same day that his book is being released. He has 4 novels now, and don't tell anybody, but he's being optioned for Hollywood. I'm going to ask him about that. And his books are soon to become major motion pictures. And then also, that very next Thursday, what I did with D-Day with Kaiser Schuff, sort of a tribute, an anniversary tribute to D-Day, I'm going to be making a 50th anniversary moon landing tribute show on July 18th. My co-host for that will be the lovely Dave Milner. So, got a lot of stuff coming up. Going to be getting more guests. Thanks for being here tonight because...
Monsieur has unlocked!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you'll find me on Twitter at BZEP, at BZEP, and also on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. Thanks to Big Sarge Media for simulcasting my show. Promotional consideration is by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and the Boeing Company. I'm still going with them. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And also by Pratt & Whitney Engines Thrust. You can trust. My tiaras are by My Little Pony. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle 1 refueling team with whom I shall be consorting in less than an hour. Thanks to everybody in chat tonight. I greatly appreciate it. Thanks to the great James Horn. He will be back. Thanks for being in chat. Thanks for listening live. Thanks for listening in the podcast. I appreciate each and every one of you. Folks, have a great weekend. We'll see you on Tuesday with Ralph Chittum's. And to you I say, God bless. Take care. Have a great night. Be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night.
Good night, Jim Bob. Go to sleep.
Good night, and good luck.